Welcome to Self-Perfected.
Thank you, Christine.
Now you can tell the truth.
Everybody,
Hello, everyone.
Look, wait, Christine, go off camera. Oh, wait, no, probably won't show Drake's face if you go off camera, right?
No,
take you away.
it'll just, yeah.
But if
Great
you
to
don't know
have
what
you.
Drake looks like, just look at last.
Go
You
back
know,
to
at first-
episode 98.
When I first logged in, it was just me, and then it was just Drake's picture, and then suddenly Christine turns her video on, and I was like, "Holy shit, Drake! Did you go to Disney and get some kind of surgery or something? Like, what's going on here?"
Your surgeries happen at Disney? Holy
It's still legal there, I think.
Yeah,
What were you
it's like
gonna
part of
share?
the business model.
You know, if you
It's
think
like
about it, transgender surgery is kind of like a reverse abortion in a way.
a reverse
It's like you're
abortion.
aborting yourself after the fact, and you're getting a
Oh.
new thing.
Yeah, like
Wow.
if you didn't want a boy, and then you
No, like if you didn't want to
allow
be
your
a boy,
child
it's like you're allowed to abort your past. You're like abort
Hmm.
yourself as like a whatever. You just
auto
become like a
abortion,
new thing.
self-abortion.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Huh.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
How progressive.
That's really progressive. Yeah.
You know, I was thinking about that word progressive yesterday.
My
and how
favorite
people
word,
like
man.
they're like, I'm a progressive. And it's like, oh, you're wanting to believe that you're progressing. You're wanting to believe
Mm.
that you're evolving, that things are getting better, but it's literally just a fucking word that doesn't mean anything in terms of how it's being applied.
Like progressing down what path?
Yeah, like progressing towards the world actually being best for all. And
No.
imagine someone who's a
Definitely
progressive
not
saying,
that.
imagine someone who's a progressive arguing that we can't create a world and a system that's best for all, but then being a progressive.
That's so funny.
Then-
It is.
then-
It's like the word. It's like, you know how words, like, especially when you look at EQOF and everything, how they talk about how words, the real meaning of living the word has been like encoded and like it's not actually possible. So you'll say something like, I'm alive, but you aren't actually being alive,
Yeah.
like in the truest sense. So interesting. That's progressive right there.
Hey, okay, so I know what to do with the podcast today because we were
Is
talking
this
about
what you were going to mention
episode-
before the live stream?
It's going to include that, but I was just
Okay.
realizing like it's the episode 99, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what we can talk about, you know, this kind of goes in along with what you were talking about with Kevin Trudeau, right? Is if hypothetically we don't become the new 1% and direct everything, then what is the destiny of the 99%? Because there's 99, so we can call this one 99%, right?
Ooh.
So
I
we
like
can
it.
look at that, right?
Hey, I'm reading that in Creation's Journey to Life right now. Bernard is talking about like the Zeitgeist movement and Occupy Wall Street and how it's all these people going, we are the 99%, right? We're apparently the majority. But then Bernard's explaining how if you want to actually get these changes to the system, it is 51% in a democracy, or to 70% or whatever to change a constitution. So he's like, why can all of these people not do simple common sense mathematics? It's funny, right? Because within the average person, 99% of them has been programmed to be a slave to never question anything. And the only 1% is them going, ooh, I'm progressive or I'm whatever, you know. Meanwhile, the majority of them is just programmed to be a slave.
The majority
forever.
of the person, you mean?
Yeah. Until they find us, and then you can choose to walk the path towards a true liberation. Right.
Yeah, the interesting thing is like how democracy used to be set up versus, you know, it's been cool getting educated through you, Mitch, of you going through the process of the delegates and et cetera.
Who would have thought? I'm a
process.
political consultant already. All right, you still owe me.
And it's like, who would accept that kind of system as democracy?
Yeah,
An uneducated population, right?
that's what we need. An educated populace.
Democracy is really just in the current context, like, can you manipulate the majority of people in your favor? That's all it is. It doesn't mean, you know, and so democracy in itself is not good or bad. And in fact, everything is always a democracy. Like your body is a democracy. If you think about it, if all of the cells didn't work in coordination, if even a small percentage actually didn't work in coordination, like your body wouldn't function properly. That's what disease is, right? It's just when everything is not following the same program effectively. So democracy, it's not like we have to change democracy. It's that we have to educate people to not be persuaded by shit that doesn't make sense. I mean, you can kind of see we're going down the wrong path there because look at what's going on in our world right now. You know, like people are being arrested and stuff. I just saw this thing, like just a random article. It was about It's like emails from Twitter, even though I don't even go on Twitter anymore. And it was something about a bunch of guys from something called Patriot Front, which I don't know the fuck that is, but it's probably some paramilitary radical group, a militia, something or other. A bunch of them got arrested outside of a gay pride event. And it was like, I think they're being charged with conspiracy to riot, which is like kind of fascinating, right? And it's like, well,
conspiracy to riot.
Yeah, so I guess they're probably going to protest the gay pride parade. I'm assuming it's what it was, right?
Gay pride protest.
Yeah,
That's funny.
and it's fascinating because you're not allowed to protest that.
No, they're like, look, if you guys were to burn some buildings down, you guys would be in the clear. But the fact that you guys are conspiring to protest, that's a big problem. You need to burn buildings down if you want to stay clear, if you don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah, and you just like imagine like the system is moving in a direction where you will not be able to speak out against anything you disagree with. Isn't that fascinating? We're creating that world, even though everyone is saying that they believe everyone should have the right to their own opinion. And so by everyone believing that, we're actually creating a world where no one's going to have a right to any opinion. You don't have a right to an opinion, and you already don't have a right to an opinion. If you think about it, it's the proof of it. Because your right to an opinion creates the conditions to where you don't have a right to your opinion. Does that make sense?
Makes complete sense. I for all y'all listening, you better be using your damn techno tutor, otherwise that definitely went over your head.
It's like saying it'd be like saying I have a right to use a knife in any way I want, and then I suddenly cut my throat.
Now you
it's like, see, you didn't have a right to do it because you just fucking created a situation where now you literally can't even hold a knife anymore because you're dead. So by pretending you have this right, you're acting in a way where you actually are creating the point where no one has the right. So you're not actually exercising a right.
Fascinating.
People get so offended about that, but literally, let me put it this way: if you go on some moral crusade within yourself or towards another person about everyone has a right to their opinion, you're literally the same fucking thing as a person saying everyone has a right to choose their gender. You can't say people can be gay or not gay, or that you can influence children or whatever. It's the same thing. Like saying I have a right to my opinion is the same thing as I can be any gender I want.
Yeah. And it's like, let's be even more specific. It's like, yeah, you're right. I can't say for you. Right. Because that's kind of like what people try to make it seem is like you're trying to tell everybody what they have to do and need to be, etc. But what Cameron's talking about is the way that we're manipulating children. Like I would finally watch the trailer to what's that documentary, that hot one?
What is a woman?
Matt Walsh one?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah. I haven't seen the movie yet, but yeah.
I finally watched the trailer.
I think I've watched enough clips that I don't need to fucking see it. I get it.
Yeah, for real.
I know exactly what's gonna happen.
You're preaching to the gay choir, man. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's funny because I mean, we've been talking about these ideas for so long that we're no longer making the fundamental arguments for it as we did at the beginning. We're just kind of like, and this is why conclusion, like, this is why it doesn't make sense. Right. But at the beginning, like if anybody is questioning, like if we actually have the best interests of people in mind, just go back to the beginning of our podcast and you'll hear the great detail that we go into about how to support and the people who have gotten support on where our sexual problems, identity problems, where it all stems from. And what we're talking about is not, because Cameron's mentioned this in the past, automatically when you hear somebody talk about, you shouldn't have a right to an opinion, what people think is, oh, so you want to control everybody to think like you think. And no, it's more so about supporting everybody to understand what everybody else understands. And when I just say what everybody else understands, I don't mean based off of their opinions. It's based off of how reality functions. So if Christine knows what 2 is and she knows what plus is, then I don't have to convince her that 2 + 2 = 4. Because she has the same information inside of her and I have the same information inside of me, we're going to converge in terms of what makes sense. And that's what we're talking about. Is like if I'm not going to claim to know all the details about why somebody would turn out to be, for example, a child molester or a rapist. But it's very obvious that there was some kind of intervening experience that created that. It's a disorder. It's something that is not in alignment with reality. And so it's like, I don't know about you guys, and I don't know if you'll be able to recall the people who've come along like this process, et cetera, but they were able to be supported to work themselves out of like sexual, I guess, I don't even know the best way to say it, but where they could see that their sexual impulses and desires were based off of ineffective programming. So what I mean by that is they had some memory that came up in their past because they were abused as a child. Either they were molested, they were not properly educated, they were maybe they had sexual desires suppressed because of religion and different things like that. And the significance of that is when we can, if you have the tools and the education to support yourself, to go back into those memories and support yourself to process those emotions, those memories, that trauma, or whatever the case may be. What does it mean to process it? It means with the vocabulary that you have now, go back to when you were a child and support yourself as that child to understand that situation and walk through it. So walking through it, meaning seeing all the decisions that came from that because of fear, anxiety, or a lack of vocabulary from like an emotional imprint. And then being able to support ourselves in that way, that no longer has the effect that it has on us today. And so if we can support each individual to go through that, I mean, that's why any of the four of us are in stable relationships. Because even though the degree of our ineffective programming wasn't that we were like sexually attracted to children or anything of that nature, it did come through in terms of being sexually attracted to things that weren't best for us. Right. And everybody experiences this. They're just looking after, like running after this kind of partner. And then they get into a shitty relationship and they're like, why me? And all this stuff. So we all have to support ourselves in some way or another based off of the ineffective programming that we got as children.
Yeah.
And we're just talking about doing that in every situation, regardless
It's
of
not
gender.
just
sex,
about being gay or not, right? It's like the reason why I'm always coming at that point is because it's the prevalent point
It's
that's
most
being imposed
promoted.
right now.
Yeah.
It
And there's
is
a
Pride
reason
Month.
for that as well. There's a reason for that, which is not, it's like literally ties into the Great Reset, all that shit. There's a reason for all of that. And so it's not like we're trying to make a special point, but look at the fucking world. The world is trying to make a special point about it.
Yeah.
We're just talking about what's fucking going on. If literally the news was every day only about, children don't really need nutrition and children don't need to be fed. And that's all we'd be talking about is, yes, they do. They do need to be fed. They do nutrition. And let's look at all the reasons why, as a world, as a human being, as an individual, collectively, we are not able to see the common sense of that and create the system to do that. We always talk about that as well. Obviously, it's just think about the fact that you don't, okay, the level of effort that's put into making sure gay people and trans, all the LGBT stuff, those people are included in society now. Look at all the fucking effort that's put into broadcasting that, and how much effort is into broadcasting our children getting proper nutrition, our children getting real education, like understanding the basics of how to be in a relationship, principles, any basic shit about being alive. None that there's like 0 effort percent. The 99% of all the shit that's being talked about is like the 0.01% of people who are fucking alive.
So true.
Dude, okay, I made a post the other day of some image of some little girl at a pride parade or whatever it was, and these like adult men or whatever, it looked like adult men, right, wearing these masks in like a full-on like BDSM, like chain around the neck, wearing a
Like
Speedo,
leather dog mask.
Yeah, dog mask, like rest of the body's totally exposed. And there's a little girl like petting one of them, or looks kind of like afraid of them. And I just made a post. I was like, if I was this little girl, I would be extremely confused. And something about like where this girl's parents, like, is like, this is basically like this kid is going to be influenced by this shit. And it's just shocking to me. It's not even shocking anymore. And I'm not even surprised, actually. But it's still appalling how many people will leave a comment on that going, oh, if this was my kid, I would be proud. Well, and all the people who are like, this is sick. Those, that shouldn't happen. Okay, sure, they're still reacting. But then all the other people that go, this is a normal, this isn't sexual. This isn't this. But I'm like, where the fuck are you on all of my posts about let's create a better world? Let's educate the kids. Let's make sure everyone has their needs met. Let's make a system that's best for all. They just fucking sit on their ass, whatever they're doing. Oh, but as soon as you say something against that man who's wearing that dog suit, maybe he wants to be a fucking dog. Maybe he thinks he's a dog. I don't fucking know. But for those people, like everyone,
it's like that's an obvious sexual fetish point.
Obviously,
look, if you want to go and do that sexual fetish stuff, go do it. But why is a child there? Right? Why is it? Why is this being done in public where children are? Why are children even being allowed there?
Okay, that's what I then posted. I was like, look, if that guy wants to dress up as a fucking dog in his Speedo with his other adult friends who want to dress up as dogs in Speedos, go fucking do that. But just, again, not around children, because how the fuck is that children going to possibly, how's that child or the kids there going to process that? Because on some level, they're probably like, ooh, there's like this weird attraction point because everyone's probably like paying attention to the dogs. It's like, it's like educating
your kid watches a little video and then suddenly they're really interested in that thing they just saw the video
exactly
and they want to play that character and play with the toys and all that, like, and you think that this doesn't have an influence. And then I saw somebody made a comment on your post, a man, but not really a man, saying, like, oh, well, this I'm sure this girl will grow up to be a nice, decent human being, and like my parents never even talked to me about sex. So it's like, because your parents were fucking retarded, it makes sense for this girl to go be in this fucking weird fetish thing and like be around all of that. Like, okay, let me ask you a question. What if the dudes were literally just sitting there fucking each other in the ass, like jerking people off, coming on each other's faces, fucking each other in the ass in front of that little girl? Would that be okay? Oh, I'm sure she'd grow up to be a decent human being. At least she's being exposed to. Where do you fucking draw the line? If you can't even draw the line at they're wearing the fucking BDSM collars and dog masks, and you're like, well, I mean, that's probably okay. Okay, well, what if it's just like, you can't see the dick, but they're fucking each other, but you just can't see their penis? Is that okay? Is that going to be all right? Like, what if they're just groaning and moaning, but you can't see them fucking? Is that okay? Like, at what level are you going to draw the line? Like, are you even considering at all that the child is being influenced in any way?
Right. They're not fucking considering at all.
And this isn't about
that person doesn't
can't go do those fetish things. Who cares? If that, I mean, that's what gets you off. That's who cares? People have all kinds of different preferences and stuff like that. It's the point of why, as a collective, I'm not really asking, it's rhetorical. Why are we not considering what is the influence it's going to have on children? And then even seeing that image and then being like, oh, wow, yes. Like people getting a good feeling from it. You know what it is? It's an iconic picture. It's the same picture as you see the soldier and you see the woman putting the flower in the soldier's gun. You know what I'm talking about? Or you see the riot police and they're giving the flower to the riot police. It's the same fucking thing. You're seeing the same thing. And then people get a good feeling from that. It's like you're looking at extreme violence and then someone doing an act that it's fucking irrelevant. And so you're looking at the destruction of innocence in a picture and then feeling like if I say something about it, the people that I'm harming, think about this. If that child is not being harmed, then how the fuck are those guys being harmed by me saying you're fucking degenerate?
Wow,
which I'm not going to say, but even if I did, how are they being harmed if I said, dude, you shouldn't be gay or you shouldn't do this or whatever? How is that going to harm them? They're adults. So how can I influence them with my words? You can't even influence a child with your words. Apparently you can't influence a child with images. So why the fuck does it matter if we include people in society? Why is it that they have these high suicide rates and people are saying it's because they're not included? But then they're adults, they're not included. It has no effect, but then also we don't have any effect on children. It makes zero fucking sense. And it's literally people not thinking. It's like they're turning off, like we were talking about, 99% of their brain is being shut down so that 1% can be focused on just the thing that matters. And there's the right emotion associated with it. Therefore that equals good.
Yeah, it's just also this point of like fluidity, right? Like there's this whole gray scale of like nothing is black or right or wrong. Everything is like this subjective. And it's funny because we had our clubhouse yesterday, and this point came up in one of the conversations of like, well, there's certain things in reality that are objective. And someone was arguing was like, no, everything is subjective. Like the only reason why we think rape is bad is because
You're
society.
making an objective statement when you say that.
Right.
It's like, but this is the one thing that's objective is that there's no objectivity. But you can't even say that then. You don't even argue with me. Just sit and be like, what does it matter what you say? I don't care.
Right.
I'm in my own reality right now. I'm floating on a cloud.
And then you smack them in the face, and then
It's
they're
like,
like,
okay,
okay, you smacked me in the face. You're like, no, I
excuse
didn't.
me, seal off all of the air. We don't need any oxygen in here. This person doesn't live in an objective reality.
Right, rip their heart out
Are you
of
going to
their
go
chest.
eat later? Wow, isn't that a
heart
weird coincidence? You
No,
eat 3
we
meals a day
only
just like
breathe
me?
air because society has decided that we needed air.
Yeah, wow.
That's
That sounds
how
like an
this
objective
person was
statement to me,
thinking.
Christine.
Christine,
That sounds
you're
like
so
an objective
progressive.
statement.
Wow.
That sounds objective to me. The only objective statement you're allowed to make is that anything that makes me feel bad is wrong. That's the only objective statement.
That's what it is. People are a bunch of pussies. That's what it is.
Well, I mean,
That's it.
nowadays,
End episode.
you know, think about it. Calling a guy a pussy used to be an insult.
Right.
Now
Now they're
it's
like,
like-
yes.
Yes,
Wait, what kind of pussy?
Look, I just got a new one.
Is it
Right here.
a
Here's my
post-
pussy. I
is
just
it
got
a-
it at the doctor yesterday.
You're so brave.
It's like, yo, how did you know I identify as a pussy today?
No. That's
Thank
like,
you for acknowledging my gender. Namaste.
no, they're still getting offended, but they're not offended that you're calling them a pussy. They're offended that you're assuming that they're a guy. That's what it is.
That's the problem. They're offended that you're assuming that they should be offended because
Dude,
you're assuming that
you're
they're
a pussy.
man.
You're like, what? How dare you call me a dude? You're like, what?
How dare you assume I would be offended by that?
That's really what's happening.
Wow, this is
so
like
I was looking
Christine,
at this.
Are you
Okay.
keeping track of the comments?
Yes,
I'm
yes.
curious. Are people litty or what? No.
Just the Kahari's like mentioning, yeah, like they're really pushing drag queens, teaching kids locally and social media. And then it's like doing drugs around kids.
How much discussion is going on about drag queens right now?
Um,
Like, of all the things that exist in our reality,
Right.
what percentage is drag queens?
Right. Like we
And
are
why
talking
is it
about
like
fucking-
90% of the fucking focus of the media is about drag queens? It's such a small, but now look at the symbolism of what a drag queen is. It's a man totally fucking doing a caricature of what a woman is. Taking all the most superficial aspects about it, making them look like a prostitute, like a slut, like a fucking crazy, weird, emotional. Look at me, everybody. Woo! Tell me how pretty I am. Like the most fucking negative parts about being like making everything that even isn't even negative about a woman into a negative, and then making that what it's all about, and then saying, this is my person, this is who I am, this is my expression, this is what gives me freedom. And it's like, if you aren't allowed to dress up in a very, very specific way, and then you feel like you're totally suppressed as a being, there's something fucking wrong with you. There is something wrong with you. Now, the problem is when you say that to somebody and they don't have the tools to understand how to change and how to support themselves, they're just going to feel like you're attacking them. But it's because they're identifying with something that's not who they are. And what I really see is this whole thing. It's not like, oh, this transgender thing is suddenly coming out of nowhere being done to us. It's not what's happening. It's more an expression of the confusion that's going on within everybody. And it's just the most extreme expression of it. This confusion is happening within everyone. And this is what we've been talking about since day one. It's like, who are you? Are you your expression? Are you this identity? Are you your beliefs? Or are you life that's in a specific form? And if you're not clear about what that form is, and you try to express yourself in a way that's antithetical to that form, you're going to create conflict. It's like if I tried to treat a tree like a pig. If I just throw pig feed at a tree, like that's not going to feed the tree. And if I just try to water the pig and like put sunlight on it, that's not going to help the pig. And the pig, it doesn't matter what the pig identifies as. It's irrelevant. Same thing with a human being. So the problem is you have the most mentally disordered people in our society now being held up as the most special, as the ones to emulate. And then I was just watching this Patrick Bet David where they were talking about something on Bill Maher, which I looked it up, and it says, this is Washington Post. This came out in February of this year. It says in total, there's been it says in total, 7.1% of US adults identify as LGBT or something other than heterosexual. That's overall, which I think is like a record. And then that's total adults. And then if you just look at the Generation Z who have reached adulthood, it says, which is people born between 97 and 2003. So if you're born in 2003, it's 2022. So I guess they would already be adults, huh? Yeah. So 21% identifies as some kind of LGBT something. Okay, so look at this. If it's just a natural thing, because what's one of the major arguments that's always made?
It's just natural. It's you're born this way.
Well, there's this small percentage of people who've always been this way and so forth, right? And
just never
it's
been
like
accepted.
Right. But it's increasing to 21% now. And oh, I think Bill Maher was saying something like, you know, at this rate in 20, 50, 30 years, everyone's going to be gay.
Then society will completely stop because
it was just completely collapsed. Like if you were trying to low key reduce the population, this would be a way to do it. Think about it. If you were like just trying to do it on the like where it's like you're not overtly doing it, you would just get everybody super gay. And then what's going to happen is if you don't follow certain things, you're not allowed to have a baby or not. They're probably going to have some fucking like restrictions on how you do that. But
did Avery send that one where was the there's some fancy term for it, but like the pods with the birth?
Oh yeah.
See that? External uterus or whatever.
Ectogenesis. I don't know. I just made that up.
It's like an incubator or something.
Yeah. Where it's like an inconvenience and it's like a harm to the mother to have the baby inside them. So now they have literally these tube things for it. You have to look at that. There's
like
some
outer wombs. It's like a womb,
outer womb.
like an artificial.
Yeah,
womb.
it's like they're like full on like scientists with all the credentials saying like, yes, this is right because of this, and this. It's really, really gnarly.
They make it look like a purse. Like you just carry out this baby, like incubating.
Okay. You know how they talk about this point about like there's a difference between sex and gender. Well, I was looking into this and I forget the name of the research or whatever, but there was a writer, psychologist, whatever, who came up with the idea that human beings have gender. Like, think about that. Meaning doesn't it just make sense? Like, well, okay, yeah, I get the point. Like people have sex and then they have gender. But if you go back 100 years ago, people didn't say, what's your gender?
Right.
It was just sex. It's been a thing that was introduced at a certain point. The word gender was always referring to grammar. Like words have gender. Like I studied Latin in high school, right? So you have like male, female, and neuter gendered words. But that doesn't mean that the male words have dicks. So that it's a separate point. So they took the concept of gender and grammar and they applied it to humans. And now that allows you to have an identity that's different than your physical identity. It's so when they say gender is a social construct, it literally fucking is. It was something that our society has made up. It's not who you are. So if you think about it, like your gender expression, what the fuck does that mean? Isn't it directly tied to your physical body? And then you have, on top of that, psychological points. So how you feel is totally psychological. That's based on your programming. It's like, you ever see a person who's really into like UFC? That's just fucking programming.
Right. No, it's a gender.
Someone who's really into fucking cars. The person who's really into whatever. It's like, yeah, Star Wars. It's a fucking program. I was born this way. It's not who they are.
I was born a Jedi.
No,
it's
Cameron,
like,
you don't understand.
Thank God I was born into a universe where Star Wars existed because Star Wars is who I am. It's my fucking identity. And thank you, God, that I was born in a time where it was already invented. Because if I was born in the 1700s, I would feel so oppressed because there wasn't any Star Wars to express my true inner being.
Like it's called fucking program.
How do you think that's who you are?
And it is the same exact thing that's happening now. The whole LGBTQ thing. It's just programming.
And the point I was looking at within all of this is the problem with all of this stuff that no one is really looking at is it assumes that who you are, and even the people on the anti side, which are mostly Christians, mostly conservative type people, right? Even them, because they still fall into this, they just think that they're fighting something, so they haven't considered it for themselves. It's like who you are is not what's best. And that's the issue, is it creates this point where it's like, whatever comes up within me is totally valid. It doesn't need to change. It can't. And then the point about questioning it and you're making the person feel bad because they can't change because it's not a choice. Then what you're really saying is you can't change. So the thing that it's like, you have programs that you accept, but then there's an underlying program. It's like when you watch a Disney movie and you think you're just watching this story, but it's actually programming you as a girl to look for a Prince Charming, but you don't even realize there's like this underlying sub program that's the real point of it. That you're copying that pattern without realizing it, which is why our kids don't watch that shit, because we're not going to have them copy all these underlying patterns they're not even aware of, right? So the underlying pattern that you're accepting by going along, it's not even about going along with it. It's because everyone is doing it. The underlying pattern, if you continue participating in it, it's like you're not questioning the pattern, is my point, is that you can't change. So the world needs to change to embrace who you are. And those points are preset, cannot be changed. They're not influenced. They're just who you are intrinsically. Meanwhile, you're being programmed to have those expressions and those identities. Does that make sense? There's a system, whether it's your parents, media, education, there's all these points all together. It's a vast, complex point that is programming you to be the way you are, to have the expression, the feelings, the thoughts, everything that's within you is you're copied that from something. So it's not coming from you. The who you are is a very small point. That's that's a principle that you have not even been able to access at this point because you're too busy looking at the 99%, which is like not really who you are. So then you're focused on that. You believe you can't change any of that. So what else can you not change? Think about it. What else can you not change? If you can't even change that, who you are, what else can you not change? You can't change the system.
Right.
So what I see is this whole point is a way of getting people just to accept. It's like when we talk about this point about how they're always talking about minority rights, right? Minority rights, and everyone's saying minority rights, but they don't realize what they're really saying is the elite minority who runs this world have a right to do that. It's a sub program they don't realize they're running. It's just like if I think everyone should have an opinion, a right to an opinion, then you can't fucking tell someone else that they don't have a right to an opinion. So what fucking program are you running by saying everyone should have a right to their opinion? Right? So by everyone saying, I can't change who I am, whether it's you're gay or whether you believe in God, whatever the fucking thing is, you can't change it, even though you didn't fucking choose it. Well, then how are you going to change the system? So of course the system wants everybody so fucking like, think of the system as an individual. And so you're over here saying, I, as an individual, believe that individuals should not be questioned in terms of whether they should change or not. Who they are is who they are. And what is best is if I just get to express that, not what's the consequences of my expression. The consequences of my expression is irrelevant compared to the right that I have to express just what's coming up inside of me. So then you can't say that the system doesn't have that right. You can't say that the people who are directly influencing the system don't have to change or have to change things. You see what I'm saying? So it's like this master program that everyone's running and that the system is impulsing everyone with. So we're so fucking distracted into arguing about stuff that doesn't fucking matter. That ultimately is just, oh, you know what? Why should I have to change who I am? You see what I mean? Like, think about that. Why do people who are LGBT get so offended whenever you question all that stuff?
They believe they can't change. They believe it's just the way
Right,
they are.
Right, because they feel like a victim to their programming. And so it's like, it's too painful to think, how can it even be changed? I don't even want to fucking even think about all the things in my life that have led up to this point and been, because it's too traumatic, because everyone has traumatic experiences. So you don't want to face that stuff. But how is that any different than asking a person to question their belief in God?
It's also
So
just
the
based
Christian-
in nothing real, right?
Do you see what I'm saying? Like the Christian people who are like trying to get the gay people to change, they're not even willing to change either. No one's willing to change. It's all the same fucking thing. There's no difference between being Christian and being LGBT.
And then
They're both choices that you're making.
it's like that confirmation bias too, right? Like I have plenty of people in my life who are Christian and they're like, well, I've just had all this proof of God and there's nothing that will make me not believe it.
But if you're allowed to have, if you allow yourself to have that line of reasoning as a valid way of reasoning things out, then you will never, you must, you just accept that LGBT is a thing and it's just going to be a thing. And then, what happens? I mean, think about it. It's the same, like, well, I know I'm gay. I just know I am ever since I was a kid, and and I had these thoughts and feelings and so forth. And it's like, you're literally using the same type of reasoning. That's not valid. Mm-hmm. It's not valid. You could say, I have all this proof. But the thing that person needs to consider is that you can contextualize the way that you look at the proof. Like just play devil's advocate for a moment, Mitch. Like, what would be an example somebody would say, like, well, I have proof for God in my life?
Like we prayed for us to get this one property. And we just prayed and prayed, and then something happened, and then we got this money for it, and it was just perfect, and we just knew it was the exact spot that we needed to be, and therefore God answered our prayers because we got the money so we could buy the property.
Okay, so how do you know? First of all, let me just break it down for a second. How do you know it wasn't the praying itself that got you to focus so heavily on the point that you activated the necessary focus that creates what you want? It'd be like saying, I just prayed and prayed and prayed for my computer to turn on, and then I pushed the button. But what I'm saying is, meaning,
right?
I prayed, that got me so certain that I could do it that I pushed the button.
Right. So it was actually you, like, you're the God you're praying for.
Yeah, meaning you're focusing on something you want really intensely. Yeah. And then you're just calling it, you're saying that the thing, it's like, imagine, just hear me out. Imagine that when you focus, it shoots out little laser beams that creates the thing you want. And you just can't see it. But you're just, because you can't see that, you're like, oh, it's this God that's doing that. But it's literally, you're the one doing it. You just can't see it. It'd be like if I was like, I don't know how this phone works. All I know is I push a button and it sends a message, and look, Christine gets a text. That must be God doing that, because you can't see the fucking mechanics of how it's working. So you assume there's something that's just greater that's doing it.
So God caught the text message,
right? Well, in this case, actually, it was God. Okay.
See, God, 10x my business for me. Okay. Okay. There's this other guy that I was talking to months ago. He's like, yeah, my proof that I know God is real and listening to me is he was like hiking in Hawaii with his kids or something, and they took a wrong turn on a trail, and it was getting late, and then he like had to turn around, and he just prayed, and then he just like knew which turn to take, and then he ended up back. I was like, do you realize that on an unconscious level, you're still absorbing everything? Like, that's actually the intelligence of your body. Like, it wasn't God, but I mean, I didn't really say it. He had been drinking beer too. I was like, I don't want to.
Right. But see, he wasn't going to listen. This is the problem. Like, that's just basic logic.
Right.
It's just basic common sense. Like, okay, you already knew which way to go. You just couldn't remember. You focused, you let go of the point, you stopped, you put your faith in God, which means you stopped stressing about it. It was probably the intense focus and fear and stress that was preventing you. It's like I always would tell students when I would tutor them, before I knew about Techno Tutor, I would always be like, if you can find a way to just not care about the result of the test, just literally don't care what grade you get. If you could just totally not care, you'll be more likely to just remember the shit that you studied. But you're putting so much fear on, I'm going to fail the test. And you're focusing on it going badly. You're focusing on the thing you don't want to happen. You're not focused, therefore, on, okay, how do I solve this problem? Okay, let me actually look at it. How do I do
okay, that? Crazy conspiracy idea. This probably has nothing to do with reality, but it kind of reminds me of when the media is saying, stay home, stay safe. There's a deadly virus. Be stressed. You can't actually then reason out, what actually is a virus and should I really wear a mask?
It's putting you in that constant state of fear.
It's probably not related though. So just ignore that.
And so the problem is when you have somebody who's like convinced themselves that no, it's God, it's like, okay, let's just take a different example real quick. Okay. Somebody's out in the woods. They don't believe in God. And they just sit down. They're like, I really just got to remember I got to get out of here. And then it comes to them, oh yes, I remember, I got to go that way. And then same scenario, but they didn't pray to God. Has that ever happened?
Right.
Or are you going to tell me it's only ever happened to people who prayed to God?
And they're like, that's why I'm an atheist, is because I reasoned it out. And the other time I prayed to God, it didn't work. And when I've just thought it for myself, it did work. Right. So that's why I'm an atheist.
And also, just for that person, whoever these people that you're talking to, if they're listening to this, how many people in this world are, or let me rephrase it. Think about the most successful people. When I say successful, I mean the ones who create the most shit, have private jets, amazing lives, like they're on vacation all the time, just doing amazing things while you're still struggling kind of with your day-to-day survival basics, okay? While you believe in God. These people, do you think they believe in God? How many of them are like devout Christians? It's not a lot. Yeah. Meaning it's not, in other words, is Bill Gates sitting there praying to God every day?
Hell no.
But he is having the life you wish you had. So how is your God believing in that helping or not? And it's like in this physical world. Now, here's the next thing you have to consider. I'm just going to support this person, whoever they are, to just kind of question things for a moment. Okay. Now think about this for a second. Okay. How do you decide when to pray versus not to pray? Meaning, why don't you just only pray? Because if you're telling me that God is the one who's taking care of you, it's not going to tax his abilities and his powers to just literally do everything for you and make every decision for you. Like literally don't even think about what you're going to do next. Don't just sit in your chair until the Spirit moves you to go do the next thing. Think about it. When you chose the job you chose, when you chose the partner you chose, like you really think God chose all that shit for you? And how are you even able to make a choice outside of God's will? And then people say, well, but God gave us free will for what reason?
Test us, see if we'll go on the Satan path.
Or is it, because people say like, well, because he wants us to freely love him and freely choose what is best and what is right and all that stuff, and choose to do the right things for him, the things that are best. And it's like, then stop making any choices. Because if that's the case, either stop making choices or stop praying. Because if that's the case, then isn't it in the moments of most extreme duress, stress, and so forth that God would be expecting you to really like choose the right thing yourself? Why would he want you to rely on him on those most extreme points? Wouldn't that be the points where you really need to step up and show that you can be trusted, that you can do what is the best thing, that the most righteous moral thing? But you notice people only believe in God to the degree that he saved them in a difficult situation. They're literally like, the reason I believe in God is because I'm such a fucking victim that there's been so many times where I've been saved by my belief in God. And then you want to sit there and complain about victim culture. Like, think about it. The same starting point mentality of LGBT, Black Lives Matter, is that you're a victim. And then over here, you're saying, I know God is real because in the moment where I was the most victimized by reality, where I couldn't help myself, God saved me. God helped me. It's like, okay, so you're a victim because you're not totally 100% self-responsible. So how are you going to go over here to this side and tell these people, you're just acting like a victim? You just want the government to take care of you. That's what you're doing. You're just, the government is this God. You're doing the same. So my whole point is it's the same type of logic. It's not a common sense logic, because common sense would go, okay, here's just common sense. Like if you can't get past this point, you are fucked, and you're never going to, unless you really go into it and look at the point and examine and be self-honest and do the forgiveness necessary, you're just fucked. Common sense would dictate if a child prayed for food, they would be fed. Yes. Why would God, even if the child didn't really understand what God was, if a child cried out and said, I just need food, I'm just hungry, or its body just cried out because the child didn't even have the words to say it, common sense would dictate that a loving God would be like, child, you are healed. Here is your food. Right. But God doesn't do that. Instead, God took time out of his busy schedule to be like, oh, I just got a message. Sally and Joe are hiking on a camping trip and they're lost. And they're praying really. Let me check the prayer meter. 5 levels of prayer? Oh my God. They really mean it. You know what, guys? Here you go. Here's the instructions. And he just downloads the GPS into your fucking head. And you're like, oh, I know which way to go. Thank you, God. Thank you for you're a fucking robot. It's like you're literally a robot waiting for a download from your fucking master. Okay. And someone says, no, I'm totally fine with that. Okay. Then you got to be totally fine with the fact that there's a system in this world that for all the things that God doesn't take care of, it takes care of all that stuff. Stop questioning it. Stop questioning it. What's the point? And you're just going to, and think about this. How many times have your prayers not been answered?
Well, God works in mysterious ways, Cameron.
Yes, exactly. So the moment you invoke mystery equals you left common sense behind. So that's a person has to get to a point of realizing that the moment I invoke mystery and say, well, there's some things you can't understand. Right. You don't have common sense. You just stopped having common sense at that very moment. So you just can't understand why your child being converted into trans and LGBT is part of God's plan. You just can't understand it. But it's totally against the Bible. You just can't understand how it's all a part of God's plan. Like your child being raped by that priest is just a part of God's plan. Don't worry about it. You just can't understand it. I know it seems this is the test. Just have faith. It's a mystery. God is so mysterious. It's like, oh no, but at this point, I'm going to start using some common sense because that doesn't feel right. It's like, okay, so your feelings are your God. That's the real truth. It's because the reason why you're getting upset that we're talking about God and challenging that is not because of anything other than you have a feeling. It's called cognitive dissonance. It's because the program is so strong within you. It's just literally a program. You're just feeling friction because it's the information is conflicting with what you believe. It's creating friction within inside of you. And that's why you don't like it. It's not because what we're saying is not valid. It's not because what we're saying is not true. It's because you just don't like the way you feel. And that has become your indicator as to whether something is correct or not, or whether it's of God or not.
The funny thing is, like, God for real, that's what real God is. It is the word. It is like the physical phenomenon that you experience when you're not aligned with reality, and that you experience conflict in order to align you with reality. Well, it gives you the opportunity to then question things, to align yourself back to what reality is. That's God working in mysterious ways, quote unquote.
And like what also just people get closed hard on this is when they have that experience at church and they're like raising the hands and they're like, I felt the spirit, right? And they're like, they feel the feeling, right? And it's like this feeling overcame me and I couldn't even describe it. I knew it had to be the Lord, had to be my savior. It's like, that's not showing you that God is real. That's showing you that you're very emotional.
Seriously.
It's like, dude, I could find somebody who's had that exact same experience from a Coldplay concert.
Yep.
They're like, oh, and then when Chris Martin sang that chorus, it was just like, oh, that's the most amazing feeling. And then instead of pictures of Jesus, they've got pictures of Chris Martin, I think that's his name, like on their fucking wall, and Coldplay stickers everywhere, or whatever the fucking band is today. You know what I mean? Like, that's all it is.
Right. Laughing. It's just here's the issue is from a very, very young age, probably since you're even in the womb, most of these Christians from a very young age were exposed to this idea of, hey, if you don't believe in God, you go to hell for all of eternity, the ultimate timeout. No friends, no family, nothing. You're fucking burning. It feels like you're dying forever.
You're banished. No one loves you. And
if you're a good boy and you don't really question it because God works in mysterious ways, but you're like a sheep and Jesus is your shepherd, so you can just be a sheep and just, trot away. Then you go to heaven and it's bliss forever and there's all this shit. And, if you're Muslim too, you got 72 virgins. I mean, that.
Hey,
right?
Man, I'm thinking of going back.
And wait, do they get the virgins from the people who went to hell?
I don't know where they.
Where do the virgins come from?
I think it's all the women who go
mysterious.
To heaven, or something. There needs to be a 72x multiplier of women to men ratio. So
wow.
Damn, dude.
What? You get to heaven, and you got 72 virgins, but then the virgins are like,
you only get to have sex with each of them once.
They're like trans virgins or something.
Oh,
imagine that they're dudes but then they have vaginas and they're like, I haven't been fucked yet.
It's a new vagina. It's
Dude,
a brand
how
new
pissed
vagina.
would you be? Oh man, imagine that.
Dude, I'd be so pissed if I was a Muslim and I went to heaven and I had to fuck a bunch of trannies, dude. 100%.
Oh man, yeah. But here's the issue: is this whole story of God, heaven, hell, the devil, Satan, all that stuff is exposed to us before we're 7. Like you're young, you don't have the vocabulary. It's just emotions and words and sounds coming in. And then now as an adult, you're hearing us say this and you're like so fucking triggered because you're like, it's that friction Cameron's talking about because we're using words, but it's based in common sense, which you don't have yet fully. And so that's why you just experience this feeling and you probably want to shut off this podcast if you haven't already.
It's like you have common sense. It's just you're not allowing yourself to go there.
Mm-hmm.
You're not trusting common sense.
That's what the friction is.
And here's the thing, right? Because for people who've never heard us talk about this before or whatever, we're not now saying, okay, so now live this unholy life and just nothing fucking matters or anything. No, we're saying that we're here as life, as part of life, which is everything, to then live the principle of doing what's best for all, which isn't that what Jesus, and if there were a God, wouldn't God even want you to do that? To realize, hey, you're a creator. You can now create. So let's create a system that can then take care of everybody. So we don't have to have a world where there are priests fucking.
See, but then people
kids.
would say that's like you want to create a system where it's just dependent on the government and all this stuff. I know I can see exactly where that person's mind will go. Oh, but if you try to create that, that's like everyone will just become dependent and all that. And it's like, but in the times of real extreme need, you go and within yourself and rely on some higher power. Mm-hmm. But you're not willing to create that for everybody else here on earth. In fact,
right.
Which, like, if God was tasking you to do anything, it would be that. It would be stand up.
Really?
Stop allowing the few in this world who are programmed with a higher level of education to fucking steal the earth from everybody else and just make their lives fucking amazing and just indoctrinate everyone into being fucking LGBT.
Right.
Which is what you're complaining about anyways, but then you don't want to fucking take the responsibility of being a creator here on earth. Why? Yeah. Because it's really what it comes down to is this. The reason you believe in God is because you're weak and you're afraid. That's it. And the points where you just become despondent about, I can't do something in my life, you rely on God as your excuse and as your savior. That's it. But the problem is, if you participate in that, the end result of that is your children are going to be taken by the system.
Mm-hmm. And that's actually the fucking hell on earth.
You cannot compete with it.
Yeah.
You can't compete, because if you could, you wouldn't have all the problems you have right now. Like, think about every time you complain in your life where something isn't going right and it's because of something in the system.
Right.
Because if you truly had faith in God, you would literally, the thought of complaining about something in your life would never even come up if you had true faith. Sure. So if you ever have any thought of complaint, you should realize you don't believe in God. Actually, you don't really actually believe you are, because if you did, you would literally feel bliss 100% of the time with no doubt. And if you don't already have it, you're never going to get there because it's not real. Because isn't the whole point of having the belief in God is that you're always living within the faith that everything will work out because you have, that should be what God has promised you. He's not even delivering on that. That should tell you right there, it's not real. Just pray one time with all of your heart, pray to have total peace forever and ever and ever, and to never have any doubt again whatsoever. Because 10 minutes later, you're going to have some doubt and fear.
You want to know what
something's going to go wrong in your life. And that should be the proof right there that the prayer isn't real. Right. It should be the 99%, not the 1% where it works.
Yeah. Because that's what this process really is. Because when someone can really comprehend what we're here doing with Self-Perfected, with TechnoTutor, creating equal money, getting into politics, changing the system once and for all, so we can have a world where everyone's extremely educated, they have principles. That's actually the thing that all the fucking people want anyway, right? But here's what's so funny. These people that are all, oh, Jesus is my savior, and I just believe in Jesus and wash me in the blood of Jesus and all that. It's like that person is just like in the story of Jesus, where Jesus goes, hey, I got a new covenant. I got a new way of looking at things, everyone, right? You don't have to go to the temple. You don't have to be the Pharisees, the Sadducees. Actually, I'm just like connected to God. Like and we should really just live like give as you want to receive. let's take care of our neighbors, love our neighbors as ourselves. And guess what? They fucking crucified him. Imagine this. Imagine if Jesus fucking came back today, right? Maybe Jesus isn't actually an individual. Maybe Jesus is more of a collect. It is really a principle.
It's like awareness.
And it came and was telling you to your face, hey, there's a new way of living. There's a new way that you can be, and we can actually create heaven on earth, right? And then you're like, no, I think we should crucify you because that goes against my belief systems. Are you not just the same person that was in the Bible?
It's like, look, it's like that Jesus awareness is like going, hey, guys, look at all the technology we have now. It's totally different than when I was here before. Like, we could easily solve world hunger, all these problems. And if you don't, guess what? All that technology is going to be used to enslave you anyways. That's what's happening right now. So all the things you're afraid of, if we give everybody what they need and so forth, it's going to be used to enslave you. That's happening if you do nothing. Okay. So don't even if you pray, no matter what, that's all happening. So don't worry about that. So let's just actually, but now, how do you guarantee that it's not used to enslave you? If you direct it.
Yep.
Okay. So imagine he's like, the technology is here. We can do so much more. And they're like, I don't know, guys. I'd rather refer to the book that was written 2,000 years ago. Okay. Because that definitely is current time. The one that was written 2,000
living
years
word,
ago.
right? It's the living word. Isn't that what they say? It's always alive. It's like, you want to know what's the living word?
Well, what about the part that says you should stone people to death if they're gay? Or if they have
or you
tattoos?
should.
Well, I mean, you got to
commit genocide.
interpret some things. I'm like, I don't know. I think it sounds like you're trying to question
Cameron, that living word died with all the people who wrote the Bible. Okay.
The
But
fucking elite 1% that controlled what was in the book. You mean? Wait, no, but God's hand was in
what?
it. My bad. I forgot. God was in the room with him.
yeah, he's the one writing it down.
But he's not here right now and self-perfected. Also,
Yeah,
helping
we're the
people.
devil because we want everybody to have everything that they need.
How do you know
and
God is
want.
not speaking through us right now?
And well, exactly. Look at our lives. All right. We're just normal people. We have families. We care about our kids. We educate them. We take more responsibility than anyone you fucking know for every aspect of our life. And we're always seeking to take more responsibility.
Mhm.
We don't abuse people. We support each other. We call each other out whenever we do something stupid. We figure out ways to be flexible within how we support somebody. You don't always have to be mean. Sometimes you can be like really kind about it or nice or friendly or whatever you want to say. And just at a base level, the stuff that we're doing is just very normal, like wholesome shit.
I don't know.
And we don't
Cameron.
believe in God.
I don't know. This sounds kind of like a satanic cult.
Oh,
Principle
shit.
of-
You're looking at the real words. Uh-oh. Here we go.
The non-living words. This is the anti-living words. The principle of what's best for all.
Uh-oh.
Satan.
Principle of self-honesty. Fuck
Satan.
that. Self-perfection through self-creation. I'm already triggered because nobody can ever be perfect.
Literally Lucifer.
In all things, keep what is good. How do you know
No,
it's
you should
good?
keep some
It's
of the
all-
bad things because I feel like it.
Yeah. Self-responsibility. I don't even know what that means.
Only God can be
Think you're God?
responsible. Yeah.
Give as you would like to receive.
Okay, you got me there. You got me there.
Plagiarize Jesus much?
Yeah. What are you guys stealing from Jesus?
Self-trust. How can you even trust yourself? Principle of
Can't even
making
trust
love
God.
real.
How you trust yourself?
Principle of making love real. I don't know.
Guys,
Making love.
love is love. Okay. If you
Yeah,
want to
I'm
dress
sort
up like a fucking dog and, let little kids watch, love is love. I mean, yeah,
Okay. Honor life in all forms.
please.
Relationships as agreements.
Wow.
Visibly
on,
living
guys.
the principle.
Have you met my wife? Trying to get her to agree to anything?
Principle of visibly living the principles. My physical body is my temple. I believe I'm just a spiritual being having
No,
a physical
it's not your
experience,
temple.
So that isn't even my body.
The temple of God.
That's why sometimes, I feel like a trans woman. So you
My
heard
body
of it.
is not my temple. Yeah, it's not the temple. It's just a host for a fucking artificial intelligence that the World Economic Forum will be downloading into me anytime now.
Not my temple. It's the system's temple.
Yeah, I'm not going to
Yes.
own it, but I'll be happy because they'll have a microchip to
Think
my
about
brain and it will
What
fuck
does
with my
own
dopamine.
nothing mean?
Means you don't even own your left nut.
You don't
you're
even own your fucking body.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah. Shout out. If y'all haven't listened to episode 48, Computer Love, where we break down exactly what is in store for humanity unless we step up, definitely check that episode because we explained literally how the embedded technology is going to work in
What
your
episode was
fucking
it?
body. What was it?
What episode?
48.
Episode 48. Yeah.
Damn, how did you know? Like, just
Oh, I refer that one to a lot of people.
It's not like he
I don't
has a
have
whole
anything better to
catalog of-
do. I'm actually scared to go share the real tools, so I just share the podcast with people because I still have fear of selling.
Mitch just Mitch just reps the podcast all week and then does the podcast as his whole life. That's how he created what he has.
Yeah.
He doesn't leave that room.
The freedom to enjoy life. Sounds like some American fucking thing.
it sounds like you're trying to create heaven on earth, guys. And we should know.
Equal life party. How do you even know what equal means?
And here's the other thing: if the whole
like
point is just
equity,
you can't do anything about this world, you just got to wait till heaven, and as long as you have faith, you go to heaven. Then why did you care if you fucking got saved in that hiking trip?
Yeah.
It was hell. Like, you should have just embraced it. Why the fuck did you pray to God? Like, you're going to be rewarded in heaven. Like, if that's your whole thing, is like, well, I don't need to change anything in this world because, you know, it's like for about heaven and stuff. Then
Dude,
why?
like if you fully embrace that, you would totally be in bliss all the time. Like
Right.
everything that
you'd
happens,
probably
like,
be
yeah,
fucking
fuck it,
leading the
dude.
gay pride march.
Yeah, you're like, yeah, fuck this shit, dude. I'm
This,
going
what
to
does it
heaven.
matter? I believe in God and I can do whatever I want here. There's no reason to do anything godly here because either you're good. It's like, here's the real truth. It's not 99%, 1%. It's 100%. You got to go all the fucking way in the purpose of creating a world that's best for all.
Right.
You can't.
Otherwise, it's doubt.
Because if you believe in God and
1%.
you're like, I'm not going to stand up and create a world that's best for all. You're just like, I'm going to do 99% of godly stuff, 99% holy, but still 1% just allow evil and shit in this world.
And just pray.
Yeah. Just one day a week, I'm gonna go out to the bar and get drunk with my friends.
Hey, think about it. 1% of their life, they're praying. Why don't you just pray 100% of the time?
Right.
Literally, if you have a farm, just pray, and then everything will be taken care of.
Right.
If you have a business, just pray. Just pray. Don't
Pray
fucking
and you will
even call a
become prey
customer.
to the world
If you see someone calling you, just start praying immediately. Like, I pray to God that customer will be satisfied and fulfilled, and I don't even have to lift a finger. If you're going to pray in times of extreme challenge, why wouldn't you pray in times where it's like low effort?
I'm not unconsciously competent. I pray.
Why put your
Right.
kids in school? Why not just pray? Why
Right.
teach them to read?
Because the definition of pray is so twisted, right? Because if prayer was really just focus, right? But see, we make it all mystical. Like, I got to pray to something outside myself. It's like, what if prayer was just focus with intention on what would be the best?
Bernard said it great. He said it's self-hypnosis.
Self-hypnosis. Interesting.
It's what it is. It's just self-hypnosis. It's like I got a reason. Dude, I've focused myself in times of extreme problem without praying to God and just within myself, like, I'm going to solve this and use my techno tutor, and we solved the problem.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, it was God. Why would God do that? That would be very stupid of God to do that and not get any credit. Why would he do that and then allow me to believe that it was my own effort?
It would only
That would
make
be
sense
very
if you're
dumb.
getting your power from Satan.
Right. So what's the fucking difference then? What does it matter? Guys, I got to go. I'm going to gay pride merch. I'm just going to embrace who I am.
Yeah. Oh, hey,
I'm on
Cameron,
Amazon
Cameron,
right now looking up
please
dog
make
masks.
sure you're bringing your 3 children while they're still extremely impressionable.
Oh,
to
yes.
the gay pride parade.
I'm going
so
to
they
turn
can be
this town
accepted.
so gay.
Yeah.
Jefferson
Wow.
is going to be like the gayest town in America when I'm done with it.
I'm excited. I'm excited for the next time.
It says, okay, so Kyle Crockett had a question. See God, do you want to read it?
Sure. Kyle Crockett says, can you believe in God and do what is best for the world?
Okay. So I can
In
answer
both
the
those
question.
things.
We can answer it, but it would be amazing if they could in real time respond, you know. But it's
Make
like
a reaction video to this, Kyle, please. Especially with your
Um,
storytelling skills.
the real question is, and I guess, I mean, I'm assuming, I mean, you know who Kyle is, like, we know he's sincere in the question. I'll give my perspective. You guys can give some perspective. Here's the problem that I've found. It's like, you have to test things, right? Like, you can't just, if you like, okay, for example, remember that guy on your post, Mitch, who was like, well, I'm sure this girl can grow up and be a decent person, even though she was exposed to all that stuff. It's like, you're just guessing, dude. You have zero fucking clue about how children and education works. You're just guessing that. Okay. So that's just like, that'd be like saying, you know, the power of the human spirit is so great. A child can witness the murder of their parents and still grow up to be a decent person. You know, it's like, are you just guessing that's going to happen, or do you know? Okay. So when I'm talking about believing in God, I can look at it from a logical common sense perspective, but it's not like I'm only doing that. We've tested it. Like we've asked people, and like think of how many people on a daily basis or regular basis we're selling on, hey, stand up, let's make a difference in the world, let's actually change the system. So invariably, what happens when a person believes in God? Okay. And first question I'd have to ask Kyle is, what do you mean by believe in God? Like, what does that mean to you when you say can someone believe in God and do what's best? Like, what does believe in God mean? To what level do you take that? Okay. Because if you believe in God, first of all, how are you defining God? What does God mean to you? Okay. So if by God you mean a higher power that is ultimately the most powerful thing, more powerful than any human being or collective of human beings or the collective of all beings in reality, it's still above that and ultimately takes responsibility for everything that happens. And there are certain problems in our world, for example, starvation, child abuse, rape, poverty, war, things like that, that as humans, there's nothing we can do. Ultimately, we cannot change them. And that only God can be responsible for those particular things because he's so powerful and only he can see all the calculations and all the stuff like that. And ultimately, he's not even going to solve it in this world. It's just going to be, it's going to be not ever be solved. Just you're going to get rewarded for believing or something when you die. See, there's so many angles you can take as someone who believes in God. Maybe you think if everyone just believed in God, all the problems would suddenly be sorted out. But then you have to look at this. How do you get everyone to believe in God then? Wouldn't you then have to go and sell everybody on believing in God? Why don't you just sell everybody on, let's just create the world to be best for all? Like, if the problem is everybody's not believing in God, it means just we're not coordinated in some particular belief. And therefore, we're taking actions on a belief that doesn't allow us to be in alignment with what's actually godly or best for everybody. So wouldn't you have to expend just as much effort to get everybody on the same page about God as you would to just fucking consider everybody equally, and that we need to make sure everyone has the basics of what they need and we have the technology to do that and coordinate all of that and stop acting only in self-interest? And so what happens is, as you start looking at how do you stand up and do that, the person who really believes in God ultimately will fall back to the point of, well, that problem we can't have an impact on as human beings, only God can, which is really what I've seen, what I've observed, is it's that person's excuse as to why they don't have to stand up in that. It's like, I just want to live in my fucking trailer and watch my soap operas all day, or watch my Netflix and smoke my weed. And, I can't apply extreme self-discipline within totally giving up everything I think that's important to really evaluate what's important and learn how to build a business and learn how to have influence and stand in the position of those that I judge in this world who are directing their system as it is. Because at the end of the day, God's going to ultimately take care of it. And as long as I have the belief in God, that is good enough, even if I don't take the responsibility when I could have. It's the belief that matters. It's kind of like saying, even if I don't give my children what they need, proper nutrition, education, proper care, attention, and so forth, even if I don't give them all those things, as long as I feel a feeling of love and I say I love my kids, that's good enough. Even if I fall short in actually making that love real, like it says in our principles, if I fall short, that's not so important. It's just the fact that I do love them. What we say is that's not love. Love is the action. And you can be perfect within that to the degree that the system allows and supports that. So you don't have to judge yourself if you fall short, unless it's through some personal directive will that you just like fucking not doing it. But if it's a system problem, then you can see, hey, I could actually make my love perfect for my kids. They could have everything they need if the system was a little bit more friendly to me. If the system didn't require me to focus on a bunch of shit that I don't want to focus on, that's nothing to do with actually just giving my children what's best. A system could support that. A system could make it so that when a child is born, there's enough money for the parents to live and the child to live, and no one needs to worry about survival. Can you imagine the level of stress that goes down in everyone in the family when I don't have to worry about where we're going to get diapers from. I don't have to worry where we're going to get food from. Hey, it's not like we're going to be living like millionaires on yachts, but we've got enough, and I can still go to work. And as the father, I can still go to work and get more for my family and so forth and build things. But I don't need to stress at the end of the day. Like, if I don't get that customer, my child's not going to eat. So I just need to manipulate whoever I can, even if I have to fucking lie, just to make sure I get enough money so that my child can eat, because that's what's happening at all levels of our fucking world. And what's interesting is the people who are the most honest and who would never cheat and lie, because those people exist, they're the ones who have the most survival stress. because their guarantee is never, because they're not willing to do the things to build a business that most people have to do to fucking build a mega massive business. They're like, I'm just going to get a job and I'm never going to cheat anybody. I'm always going to do what I say I'm going to do. I'm going to be a good, decent person. But then they're always the ones who are like the first person to complain when the gas price goes up 10 cents. You know, and I'm not trying to make light of it, but that's what happens to the good people. Right. What do you guys have to add to that? Because is there something I'm missing?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say like the belief in God, I see it too. It ends up being a limitation because people will say there's one little bit of mysteriousness about reality. It leads to mysticism, believing there's something outside of you that controls you, which right now we do have a system outside of us that it does have an influence on our lives. So rather, instead of focusing on God and belief in God, let's just make a fucking amazing system that takes care of everybody. And if you want to call that your God, well, I'm not gonna, but that would be what a God would actually be. It'd be like a thing that just creates like perpetual value, which would be, everyone's got enough money.
So I just want to put this in. If you depersonalize what God is, it is just a word that means the thing that's ultimately in control of a particular thing. So it's like, that's why we say, like, if you read Bernard's blogs, he said, parents are gods to their children. Because ultimately they're the ones that are forming the vast majority of how that child understands the world. So to the child, it's not just like an emotional to the child, the parent is God. They actually are, because they're the ones creating who that child will become for the most part. Even if they're putting their kid in front of the TV and in school and so forth, they're still the ones who would have direct ability to either allow that or not allow that, to the degree that they're not limited by the system and therefore just having to survive. So we understand why parents, therefore, they don't end up taking that responsibility. But my point was, when you said the word God, it's like, we don't want to say, like you said, well, I don't want to use that word, but it's because the word has become more than what it is. It's like if I said, dude, you are a chess god. It's like, what do we mean by that? It's like, you're the fucking best. Like, there's no one can win. Like, you know everything about it. You know what I mean? So like, why can't you be a god? Like, oh no, that's blasphemy. It's like, you can be a god at fucking Fortnite. Like, you can be a god at like woodworking.
What,
you can be a god at painting.
Doesn't Bernard use the term the God system of equality? Isn't that some audio or something?
Yeah.
Right. So that's the thing. And don't believe in it. Create it. Like, create it with us.
Belief is actually getting in the way. That's the problem. It's not that God is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's the belief part that's the problem. Yeah.
Really well is like, let's create the system that what everybody prays to God for, that they get from God.
Yes.
Is the system that we should create that provides for everybody what everybody prays for. And on
and
that point of
sorry, just real quick, if we did that, why would God have a problem with that? If we prayed to God for certain things and then we were like, you know what, let's just actually create that ourselves. And if you believe that God is going to guide you in your prayers, then why not just start creating it and just believe that God's going to guide you in it?
And then focus on life. Really get to know the word life and what that means. And when we talk about that in this group, like that piece of you that's looking for, like, is there something more than just me? And can I connect to something greater than just me? Really study Destiny. Really look on Equoff. Like, listen through those series so you can really understand. One, throughout existence, right? There was a being that tried to become God. But you got to look at that for yourself, right? We don't have time to go into that on the podcast. And then also,
shouldn't be surprising considering you see that happen all the time on the fucking planet of people.
Right. And so there's this enslavement system on the planet, and that's what we need to change. And as gods, right, we're each a god. Like, how different would you treat everybody if you realize the truth that they are also a god? And then when we have that, right, that piece though, that Kyle, because I know you somewhat well now, over the past few months, is like, really, really look at that word life. I think that's what you're actually looking for,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, you were going to say something else.
Yeah. And I'm not even sure if Kyle was asking for himself or just in general.
Yeah. Could be rhetorical.
But because I'm sure he knows a lot of people. I had that question for myself too, even when I transcended the point to the degree that I did at that time. But I ended up, initially a couple of years ago, I ended up having this in-depth discussion with somebody who believed in God. And what it comes down to is two fundamental points, depending on the frame of mind that individual has, or the construct that they have inside of themselves. And it's going to come down to the general point that we talked about of at the end of the day, if you're you just look at the fundamental, the axiom, the principle at play right there is that there is something outside of me that I'll never understand or that I can't control. That fundamental point, or that's going to control things or take responsibility. That fundamental point does not align with what it takes to change the system inside of yourself. Even just inside of yourself, because that's how you change the system externally. You change the system inside of yourself of what you place value on and what you talk about, what you think about, etc. And then you go and participate in each part of the system and change it. So that fundamental point of there is something beyond my control, beyond my understanding that's taking some kind of responsibility in this world to any degree, that even 1%, that fundamentally cannot coexist with the point of I'm going to do what it takes to change the system, which is taking 100% responsibility. So that's the first point. Now, on the flip side, this conversation that I was having is very, you could say intelligent conversation, difficult conversation, because when you have all the logic, the higher your vocabulary and your starting point is wrong, the bigger the box that you have to kind of not question,
get lost in. Yeah,
exactly. Like there's so many ways that you can justify what you're saying. So a person is saying, well, my belief in God says that God has empowered me with free will, with reasoning ability for me to take full responsibility. So can't I believe in God and do what is best for the world? And I said, good point, right? Because your belief in God is saying that God has given you this power to take responsibility for everything. But the problem there is that then what's the point of believing in God? Like, what's the point? So the issue that's held there practically, like how does that actually hold you back from being able to do what's best in the world, is because you're not willing to go back and question your entire childhood, your belief system, why you even established it in the first place. Because the reality for that person is, that they seem like, kind of effective in business, etc. Because they have that kind of thinking, is like, I'm going to take 100% responsibility. But the issue is their family, the whole subconscious point of
but also they're just taking
their
advantage.
Culture, that all of that stuff is all being held in place by religion, where if he were to let go of religion or the point of believing in God, then he would have to face conflict with his family and with his upbringing and with everything. Therefore, because you can't face that point, because you can't go back and let go of, why am I even accepting God in the first place if he has literally no role in reality? Because you can't go back and question that is what is going to hold you back from actually being able to do what's best in the world.
And the person who's effective in business, let's say, who believes in God, the problem is you're just taking advantage of a system where there's an inequality in education. And so we're not saying to stop believing in God. We're saying don't let it interfere with your ability to equalize education on this planet. Because even if you're a capitalist and you're in the system and you're really effective, wouldn't it be better if there was more competition? I mean, isn't that the fucking standard that's held up? Is more competition better for the consumer? And it's more like, do you want to go to the Olympics? Okay, imagine you're fucking Usain Bolt, but literally you're competing in the Special Olympics. What would be the point? You'd just be like, I'm not going to go next year. What's the point? Like, meaning if everybody was at your level, wouldn't it be better? Wouldn't you have more people to work with and create and knowing that it's not about, I have to survive. So whether you fail or not,
that's the key caveat.
It's okay to totally fail. It's like, no one's even going to judge you or give a shit if you fail. You're like, all right, cool. That didn't work. Let's do something else. Let's go to another business. All right. Hey, you guys succeeded. Can I come work with you? Okay. I got another idea we can improve. It's like, you wouldn't give a shit. It's like, all right, this other guy succeeded. I'm going to go work with him now. This is amazing. It's like, because you're not about ego. You're not trying to prove something. And so the problem is the people who are really effective, what they have to face is the self-interest point, the self-interest only, which is the ego point. So it's like, okay, you believe in God and you're really good at business, you make a lot of money, but what about everybody else? Is it just they don't believe in God? Don't you see plenty of people who believe in God who are fucking poor? So it's clearly not the belief in God that's giving you this advantage.
The significant point in that is what Mitchell pointed out earlier, is the confirmation bias. Is like if you already have the conclusion of here's why, then anytime you try to look for why is it that I'm successful, you already have the explanation inside that's resonating. So you're never going to take the responsibility to be like, okay, why is it that I am actually successful? Like, what is it that I am practically doing? And to be frank, it's like, it's even if you tried, it'd probably be really fucking hard for you unless you were programmed like a retard and then you walked a process of change in order to become successful. Because if it comes naturally, the story I always use is, I always tell somebody, okay, teach me how to walk. And they invariably say, okay, well, you put your left foot in front of your right foot. And some people have a little more detail. They say, you got to make sure you move your left arm opposite to your right foot, etc. But if you just put your left foot in front of your right foot, you're going to go like this and you're going to fall over, right? Why am I bringing that up? Is because this thing that we do so naturally, so effortlessly, we take for granted the level of detail that goes into it. And we learn that
and the level to which we fucking copied that.
Exactly. The unconscious downloading for us to learn that point, because if you were to consciously try to teach somebody to walk, it would be ridiculous. Because then I always showcase like, okay, so, curl your toes on your right foot, drive your left knee at a 45-degree angle from the ground with about 80-90 joules of energy, clenching your left gluteus maximus and your left quadricep, and making sure that you're engaging your stabilizer muscles down your spine and engaging your right shoulder muscles and your arms, and making sure you're counterbalancing and using your abdomen. And people are like, oh shit, yeah, there's a lot more to it. But the point is, even me describing that, I'm still missing out on so much detail, so that if somebody were to follow my instruction, about the how to do something, it still wouldn't work, because the amount of detail that goes into something. So my point is, for somebody to dismiss their success, or the reason they made it out of the forest, or the reason they were helped out in hard times, to the most simplest explanation in the world of this magician, this god, it's ultra irresponsible, because the amount of detail that actually goes into that. And so the only way to solve that is to understand principles, because it's from principles that the how bears fruit. It's from that seed of, if I were to focus on what is best, and not just best for myself, best for all, then what would be the outcomes that I would look at, and what would be the consequences that I consider? That's the only way to start engaging the proper activities and points in order to be successful or have great relationships, etc. What are you going to add, Cameron?
I was just going to say the logic behind, like you said, like, okay, I made it out of the forest and it was because I prayed to God. So the magic person, like, just helped me out. And it's like, there's this scene in that What Is a Woman trailer, where he's talking to the I think it's to the PhD 4CA, right? Where he says, well, children believe in Santa Claus, but we don't think that that's real. Meaning, just because a child says like, I'm a boy or I'm a girl, when they're actually a boy or girl, within the opposite, they also believe in Santa Claus. So we don't take that for granted, like that's real. We know it's not real. And then, so imagine a conservative Christian person making that argument. But then I say, well, that's kind of like how you believe in God. Like, you just believe that there's a magic person who lives in a place you've never been to and you can't see, and he does all these things for you that don't make logical sense, but you just believe it. So that's why earlier I said, being trans and LGBT and all that, supporting all that shit, is literally no different than being a Christian. It's the same type of logic. Therefore, it has the same logical flaws. It has the same logical consequences. Like, the world that we live in, ironically, is a product of people not following Jesus's principles, but instead believing in Jesus. You know what I'm saying? Like, they believe in Jesus to the same degree that a child believes in Santa Claus, to the same degree a child believes they're a boy when they're actually a girl. Because none of it is practically applicable. It's just waiting for some magic thing. And like, if this magic thing is true, if I just believe with all my might that I'm really a girl, and I can do all these things, and I can be a girl, and I really can, and I really am. And it's like, if I just pray to God and I believe in him. He's really going to be real. And it's like, it's a hope. It's based on a hope that if I just believe enough, then that thing that frightens me the most, which is what happens when I die, it's really going to be real, that I'm going to go to a magic place where everything's going to be okay and I'm going to see grandma again. Because every time I've had extreme tragedy in my life, I didn't face the reality of it. I just turned and gave in to the temptation to believe that somehow it's okay. Somehow, like, why don't we just be upset about the fact that death exists and not be okay with it? And let's just do everything we can to prevent it unnecessarily and actually value life. But by saying like, well, you know, when grandma dies, she'll be in heaven. So who gives a shit if we put her in a fucking, you know, old folks home, and like, you know, who cares if old people by and large have shitty fucking lives because we don't have systems in place to really support people with proper nutrition and proper health and mental health and all these things. So if you turn into a fucking wrinkled old demon by the time you're 70 years old, watching fucking soap operas all day in a nursing home playing bingo, and that's like the highlight of your fucking world, that's like, okay. And that, how many people is that happening to? And who gives a shit if the government steals your pension?
Yeah. That's what,
do you know what I mean? Like, that's the fucking world we are not taking care of old people. We're not taking care of young people, and the people who are in the middle are now sacrificing themselves and their children for the old people who don't even, it's like, wear a mask to save grandma so she can spend another 5 years in a nursing home and fucking have a miserable existence. It's like, at this point, just let her fucking die. Jesus Christ. She didn't want to be there anyways. She never come to visit her. It's like, why are you worried about wearing a mask to save grandma? You're not even gonna see grandma. You don't want to fucking see her. And my point is, all of this is a system. And it's like from start to finish, none of it is best. So if you want, you know, and Bernard made this point one time, how we always take our babies and we give them to the old people because it's like, and I don't do this, by the way, where it's like, oh, you know, they want to see the baby and everything, right? And it's like, you're literally taking the child and being like, hey, do you want to see a demon? Do you want to see a wrinkly old fucking wrinkle bag that's you're going to turn into? Look at that. And like, imagine the child being like, oh, fuck, this is my destiny. This is where I'm going. Like right away, the moment you're born, this is what you're going to become. How about that? Isn't that great? And you're like, fuck. You know what I mean? So it's like, dude, I don't let fucking weird, damaged people around my kids. I want people around my kids who are about life, who are about changing the system, creating what's best for all. We have a friend now who has techno tutor. They live relatively near us, and the kids like to play with their son because there's techno tutor. And part of us being around them was to support them for that. And they invited us to come over the other day for the kids. Actually, I texted them and said, hey, kids want to play. You guys want to do that? I said, well, that's fine. Today we agreed to watch this other kid who's like a next door neighbor or something, right? And I know this kid because I've talked to this family about it. Like, they're super religious. Like, the kid, actually, the boy who's the friends with our kids now, when they were playing, Max was telling me later, he goes, you know, I won't say the kid's name, but he was like, so-and-so was talking about God. And I was like, really? What did he say? And he said, yeah, he was saying that, you know, God is real. And I'm like, really? That's weird. Because I know his parents actually don't believe in God, right? And I was like, and they don't talk about God.
Wait, what?
Right? How does that work?
Well, I'm going to explain, right?
I thought you said his family was super religious.
Sorry, two different kids. So there's the kid who's friends, quote unquote, with our kid.
Oh,
they were babysitting this other kid who's from the religious family.
And the first kid started talking about God.
But a separate day prior to this, our kids were playing with the first kid who's not religious, right?
Yeah. Gotcha.
And then I'm just giving context for this other part. So he was telling me like, yeah, he was talking about God and so forth, right? And I was like, really? What did he say? He's like, yeah, he said God's real. And I'm like, what? But what did he say God is? And he's like, oh, he said God's like, you know, lives in heaven and like, you know, all this, like just the generic stuff about that, you know, a kid would know about God, right? And I'm like, that's weird because his parents don't tell him that. And he was like, yeah, he's impulsed by this other kid that he plays with, right? I was like, oh, interesting. I said, what did you say to him? Max said, I said to him, have you ever seen God? And he's like, you know, it's not real, right? Max is trying to sell this kid on like, no, like think about it. So Max is a real friend. He's like, no, not real, dude. Like, you haven't seen it. It's not real. That's just pretend, right? And he's trying to give this kid context. So it's actually, I'm sure the parents are really grateful because like our 5-year-old's able to, and not in a mean way, just be like, no, come on, guy. So anyway, so when the point came up with, we wanted to go play over at their house or them come over or whatever, he was like, hey, well, we got this other kid we're taking care of. right? So you guys can come over here. And I was like, let's just do it another day. Because this kid's much older. He's like, I don't know, 9, 10, something, the one who believes in God and all this stuff, right? And I know if I take Max over there, the problem is, I'm just giving y'all context for how I look at things. Katie wasn't going to be able to go because she's going to stay with Caius. So I'd be there with the kids, and I'm probably going to be talking with the dad the whole time about all kinds of stuff. I'm not going to be there to direct it. And this kid's much older, right? That's going to lead to probably some physical altercation, because if you guys know Max, he does not let a point go. Like, he will challenge you until you accept what he's saying. That's selling. He's not going to beat you up, but I just know some people are going to not like that. Right. So I was like, and Max was like, and I was explaining to him, we're not going to go over there and play today. And here's why. And I explained it. And Max was like, yeah, but I'm just going to convince him that God isn't real. And I'm like, yeah, I know. That's why we're not going to go do it. Like, we need to do that in a context where I can actually be there to direct the point effectively. Because if I'm there and I'm trying to support you and Seneca and then with the father and all this stuff, like, that's not the best place. The best place would be to get to know the parents and support them first. In a context where we can direct the point, right? So I just explained to Max, like, I'm not going to tell him not to talk to somebody, but I'm still going to direct the point. So just my point being, like, we're so specific with what we introduce the kids to. And also, like, that kid is not prepared to play with my kids.
He's not ready.
He's not, like, it's just, because I have enough context to know about this family and so forth, right? So I know somebody might say, well, that's judgmental. Yeah, no shit. You know what's funny though? You're not allowed to judge somebody. You're not allowed to judge somebody for believing in God or being gay. You're allowed to judge somebody if they disagree with those things. That's the world we're creating. Why? Because, as I said, the whole LGBT thing fits in. Why is God out, by the way, in terms of the system? It used to be like the system loved religion, right? Am I right? Like, it was like hot. It was like everybody was religious. It was like the thing. And then the enlightenment came along. And that's where we shifted into spirituality. Actually, that was like the beginnings of it. Right. And that was the belief in science and reason. So everybody was religious, because who was the one running the show back then?
Church.
The kings and queens, right? Mm-hmm. Well, the kings and the queens, and then the church working together. The king was the mouthpiece of God through the church, and they had the church, blah, blah, blah. It was like they were God, right? They were the ones. So they got to direct, and no one could read. So they couldn't read the fucking book and be like, wait, but Jesus just said we should love our neighbor. Like, what? That's it? Why the fuck are we going to go to church every day? Like, you don't love me like you love, hold on. Wait, I'm equal to the king? What? Like, they couldn't read all that. It was just interpreted. So then now we have a world where postmodernism and so forth has totally killed all of that. And so the reason why the system doesn't want you to believe in God anymore is not because God is, see, this is the thing, I think because the system's attacking it, it's true. It's valid. See, they don't want us to be Christians because Christianity is where it's at. It's like, dude, Christianity is what led to this point. Give me a fucking break. It's because they want to just replace the new authority with the government, literally. Like, just cut out the middleman. It's just literally the government.
Right.
Get rid of people's belief in God. Believe that you're progressive if you believe what the government says. And there we go. And like fact checkers and all that stuff. So that's where we're at. But believing in Jesus and all this other in Christianity and all that and God is not the fucking solution. It's not throwing the baby out with the bathwater though. It's okay. What are the actual good things? Jesus said, investigate all things, right? Keep what's best. So investigate religion and Jesus and all that. What's the best things about it? We're all equal. Love your neighbor as yourself, like you were talking about. Those principles that we have in our fucking pamphlet that you can get at a clubhouse, self-perfected clubhouse. Like we're explaining, here's the principles. If we all lived this and then created a system that embodied it, hey, I wouldn't care if you believe in God. The problem is not God. The problem is your inequality to God. That's the real problem. The problem is the person who, by their belief in God, has now placed themselves in an unequal position where God is superior to you. That's the problem. If you think you're equal to God, if you know you're equal to God, then that's no problem. I don't care if you believe in another God. Who cares? But when your belief in God interferes with you creating a system that treats everybody as equal, I mean, that's kind of ironic. It's kind of ironic that your belief in God prevents you from creating a world that is best for everybody. Isn't that the fucking ultimate height of irony?
Yes.
Think about it. And you're literally not realizing, okay, well, if you want to believe that it's just about prayer and you get your reward in heaven, The people who are willing to do what's expedient will have power and control in this world. The people who are willing to just not have any morality will win. That's what's going to happen. So, and then you're just going to complain that you're a victim and then pray to God more. But unfortunately, when you die, or fortunately, you're going to wake up and you're going to realize, oh, fuck, that was all a lie. That was all a test. It's like, imagine you like die and then you take off this headset and you're like, oh shit, I fucked up the game again. And you got to go back and do it again. And it's like, okay, this time I'm going to remember, I am a God. I'm here. Just like Jesus said, when Jesus came to earth, and now I know the Christians are gonna be like, wait, what? When Jesus actually came to earth, yes, I'm serious. He was not the Jesus you think he is. He was just like you. Like before you were born, you were sitting up there chilling with Jesus in what you would call heaven. You were already in heaven. This is not, people don't even realize this. They're trying to get to heaven. So you were already there. You know how you get to heaven? You just die. No problem. Okay. But the problem is heaven is not this great, magical, wonderful place that you think it is. It's just a place where you don't have a physical body and literally you can't fucking do anything because you have no access to physical reality. You're just like not even thoughts. You're just mental fucking nothing. Okay. So you're up there, you're chilling. Jesus is like, hey, I'm going to earth, guys, because look how fucked up it is. But that's the actual real place where everything's physically real. I'm going to go there and remind everybody who they are. Like you were just up here like 20 minutes ago in my time. You know, I know it's been like 30 years for you because you've been on earth this whole time. But for me, it was like, I just was sitting here 20 minutes ago. You just walked through this portal and then you were born out of your mother's vagina. Like, you know, and yes, only women can have vaginas. I know. But my point is, Jesus came to remind everybody, hey, we're all gods. He even said, look it up in the Bible. Ain't ye all gods? Aren't you all gods? That's what he was saying to people. Aren't you gods? Like, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you sitting here allowing the king or the whatever to be the master and the ruler and you're doing all this? And like, we're not even creating a world that's best for everybody, but we're all equal to each other. That's what he came to tell everybody. And he said, this thing, this image, this identity that you've accepted is not who you are. That was just a program that you're running. And if the system was built differently, you would have a different image and program that you'd be running. This is just a suit that you're wearing while you're here on earth. It's not really who you are. It's a picture. And he tried to tell everybody, you've identified with the picture. And this is what the LGBT stuff is. It's like, I'm identifying myself completely with the picture. There's no being in here at all. I'm just whatever the program is. I'm totally a victim to my programming.
Get with the program.
So the problem is the Christians, Jesus, think about this. Who was Jesus talking to when he came to earth? People who believed in God or didn't believe in God?
People who did, right?
I mean, both.
But primarily people who believed in God.
Mhm.
Everybody back then, there was no atheists back then.
Right.
There was no like, oh, I believe in science. There was no fucking science. There was just, you believe in God or some gods or some kind of God. You believed, if you're Jewish or Hebrew or whatever the fuck it was, you know, like you believed in like Yahweh and all this other stuff, but everybody believed in some kind of gods. So he was talking to people who believed in God. Does that make sense? You know what I'm saying? Like he wasn't talking to people who were like heathens, not believing in God. They believed in God. And he was like, this ain't good enough. We're not taking care of reality here. Let's create a system that's best for all. And he was reminding them, like, you're not acting as God would act, as the actual God you are. There is no God. I am from the Father. I'm here. You're my brother. Like, we're all from God. We are God. And literally, and it's like people can say, like, that's not what my Bible said. Dude, your Bible is a translation of a translation of a translation. You say it's the inspired word. Like, do you just want to believe that the fucking people who translated it, like, do you know who else believes that they have the inspired word of God?
12 Years a Slave, inspired by a true story.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? Who else has the inspired word of God? Muslims have the inspired word of God. Yeah. The Hebrews who aren't believing in Jesus believe they have the inspired word of God. Like everybody, it's like that doesn't make it. That's just, you're like, nope, but it's I know what mine's really inspired.
That's like having a fact check stamp of approval. It's just made
it's
up.
Like if there wasn't a publishing company that could make money from it, the Bible would not exist. If it could not be used to enslave you, it would not exist. Literally, the Bible is the Netflix of back then. It was just the way that they fucking indoctrinated everybody into accepting a slave programming.
And then there was one person that could fucking read it and nobody else could read. So they're like, you tell us. And that person is the priest.
Right. And now we have, instead of priests, you have the LGBT gender affirmative PhD psychologist people.
Mm-hmm.
And they're the
Oh,
ones
like,
who are like, they have all the lingo and all this the stuff, and they have the conviction 100%. 100% they are convicted, and you can't convince them otherwise. So if you're going to hold on to this point of like, well, my belief in God, blah, 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 it's like you're literally just participating. What I'm trying to explain to you is you have no right to complain about the LGBT, whatever indoctrination of your children, because you're participating in the same game as they are. You're just competing and thinking you're going to win. Your game is losing. Your game is out. It's over. If you were born in the 15, 14, 1200s, I don't know, whenever, then yeah, you'd fit in. But it's like, it's done. God's not coming back. It's over. So what are you going to do now? Maybe God still exists in heaven. Maybe he's up there and you're going to get some reward there. Fine. I don't give a shit what you do about that. But here's my point. Since you obviously see a problem here with all the shit that's going on earth, let's work together and let's solve the problem here. Whatever happens after that, is God going to be mad at you if you did that? Like, oh, no, God's mad because I made sure children weren't indoctrinated. Because it's not going to be by preaching religion. It's not like you're just going to go and save all these people. That's not going to be. Do you want to know the major problem why people are LGBTQ, all that stuff? It's fucking mental health issues. It's that their parents and the environment they grew up in was based on survival and not what is best for the person to have a stable, emotionally stable environment. So they created all these internal disorders. It's literally the same reason why kids grow up and shoot up schools. It's a different expression, but it's the same kind of mental, emotional, inner conflict and turmoil that just comes out as a certain type of expression. It comes out, and now this particular one has been engineered into a way where it's acceptable because it makes the person unstable, where they are okay with just consuming whatever is put in front of them. So that's a good consumer, is a person who's mentally, emotionally unstable, but not so unstable that they're going to hurt people, just unstable enough where they are not certain of who they are. And so they are always like susceptible to being suggested some new thing that they need to have. Okay. That's the kind of society that a consumer system needs. So this person, this has become the new thing so that people will not ever stand up and create a system that's stable. So if you want to solve the problem of all the LGBT indoctrination and so forth, the only solution is let's educate everyone effectively. And then on the other side, on the economic side, let's create a system that gives everybody what they need as the basics of living without any stress. Because what you'll see is the level of gender dysphoria, the level of anorexia, the level of ADHD, like all these other things are going to go down because all of these things are just the consequence of not having things direct. Like my kids don't have ADHD. Is that a coincidence? Weird. I just got lucky. It's so weird. A really prevalent, predominant thing, gender dysphoria and ADHD and all those things that you see in a lot of kids these days. My kids have none of that. That's so weird. And yet they're also super hyperlexic. Wow. The fucking odds. It's just amazing. They have none of the negatives. They're not autistic. It's crazy just because we've taken direct self-responsibility for their education and we use technology with them. And we have the means to create a stable environment emotionally because we're stable financially. And all we're saying is we want to support everyone in the world to have that. You don't have to be a billionaire to fucking have basic stability. Right. Like, wouldn't it be okay if everybody had the lifestyle of like a millionaire? Mm-hmm. Like, what does a millionaire have? Like a millionaire doesn't have a private jet, right? But what are some things they have?
Yeah, they got some land, enough, decent food.
So they might have property. They just have access to do that, right? Mm-hmm. They have good food. What else?
Vehicle.
Right. They have like a decent phone, mm-hmm. Good computer. So like, imagine if everybody just had all those basic things. They may not have $1 million in the bank, but they had all the things that if you were a millionaire, you'd expect like, oh yeah, I need a good phone. I have a good phone. Well, of course I'm gonna have a good phone. And we could engineer a society in terms of the mechanics behind it, the technology, the systems, the supply chain, all that stuff to make sure everybody has the basics. That's the best. Society is going to be engineered one way or the other. we might as well do it in a way that's best for everybody. That's going to reduce all the negative stuff. Because if a society of people is highly educated, then how are they going to be susceptible to fucking authoritarianism? By not directing it. See, this is the thing. People don't want to create a world that's best for all because they think that's going to be a totalitarian thing. But by not directing all of this stuff that we're talking about, you're creating the conditions where it's very easy for a totalitarian society to exist. So we're not saying go and control everybody and choose their job for them. We're saying give everyone the basics of what they need. So they'll be so stable, they would never fucking accept the authority telling them they have to do this or have to do that without giving them the exact reasoning as to why. And the ability to evaluate it themselves. It's just basic common sense.
Because they're not afraid of losing their survival, their basics.
They're not afraid.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this really is the 1%, right? Not the 99%. That's what we represent as the new 1% that will become the 100%. Right.
Yeah.
So whoever's listening, are you going to help us?
The number one point of becoming the new 1% is 100% responsibility. That's what 99% of people are not currently willing to do right now. So if you want, I sometimes people forget that we're not programmed to have highly effective relationships and have financial stability and have a great life and be great parents. We think it's just supposed to be like kind of easy, like, oh, cool, because I have the tools now, and or I'm focused on it right now, therefore it should be coming, right? No, you have to change the system inside of you, and step by step. And you don't have to wait till the system is completely changed inside of you in order to see the results. You will bear the fruits of your labor point by point. Like each point that you take apart, you will see it come to fruition if you've done it effectively. And sometimes in the beginning, when you're inexperienced and you don't know how to quite write effectively, you're just ranting and not going for the solution and, different factors like that. Yeah, it might take you a couple of laps on the same point in order to actually shift and make the change that you want to see. But when you do, then you will realize, oh my God, I wonder how much I can change. The limits of what I thought were the limits of change for myself, that is now fading away. I wonder what is the limit of my change. I wonder what's the limit of my partner's change. I wonder what's the limit of what my child can do. I wonder what's the limit of the groups that I'm a part of, how far we can go together, this world, etc.
See, and that's where we start to then, once you move to those points, you start to see, okay, where are the limits of where we're at actually collectively, what actually can be changed? Because right now, if you can't even change these tiny points within yourself, it's like, oh, that's so impossible. There must be a God that takes care of it, because there's no way. And I can't just accept a reality where I'm just totally fucked. There has to be somehow it's going to be better.
Yeah.
But we're saying it is a step by step. Don't allow yourself to become overwhelmed. And what's, like you just said, it will, your reality will actually, ironically, progressively get better.
So start with what's in front of you and accumulate from there.
All right.
Anything else?
See you on Friday.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Last Friday hangout, there was like over 85 people.
88
awesome.
Was the highlight. We got some double ups. Yeah.
Yeah. We had some double ups on the screen. So probably over
100.
Yeah, it was probably close to 100 because it was like 80, I think 88 or 89 was the most participants at one point.
Nice.
Right, exactly. Then we have couples and stuff like that. So
yeah.
We'll see you guys next week. And again, just focus on what's in front of you and build that momentum, because as you start to change, you'll start seeing everywhere else you can change and everywhere else this world can change. See you later, everybody.
All right.
All right. Bye, everyone.